Hello everyone, I'm Xia from University of Liverpool. Today I'm going to present you a paper called Multi-Source Attention for Unsupervised Domain Adaptation. And this paper is written by me and my supervisor Danishka. I'm very glad to have this chance to present this paper to you. Before I go into the main topic, I want to first introduce you what is domain adaptation. Domain adaptation means basically trying to learn a machine learning model from one dataset can be applied to a different dataset. We call the one we learned from the source domain and the one we apply to the target domain. But usually we have not just one source domain, so the training data can come from multiple sources. So this is what this paper is looking for. In multi-source domain adaptation, normally we face a problem called negative transfer. So when you have these multiple source domains, are all these sources good for learning transferable features for a particular target domain or not? In the literature, there's basically 4 categories of solutions. First, select a source domain, then select instance from that source domain to adapt to the target domain. Second, select some instances from the combined pool of all the source domains. And third one is like pick up one of the source domain and use all the instances in that source domain. And the fourth one is like just pull everything and use everything. Our proposed method have 4 steps. First, we generate some pseudo-labels for the target domain using the source domain instances by self-training. And second, we compute the relatedness map between the pseudo-labeled target domain and the source training instances. Third, we compute attention weights for each of the source domain on an instance level. Fourth, we jointly learn the model based on the relatedness map and the attention weights for predicting the target test instance. Here is an overview of the model architecture. Then I will be presenting each part one by one. The first step, we learn some individual predictors for each source domain, and as you see here, we have the F1 to Fn, and then we learn a majority vote from this F1 to Fn of F star, and using that F star to label the unlabeled data in the target domain, so that we have the pseudo-labeled data for the target domain called TL star. So just for who you are not very familiar with semi-supervised learning, for example, self-training. We use self-training method here, and actually self-training is a way to interactively increase a set of label instance by training a classifier using the current label instance and apply the train the classifier to predict the pseudo-labels for the unlabeled instances. You can see an example here that the model 0 is learned from the yellow ones, which is the labeled instances, and then using this model 0 to label these gray ones, we have these green ones, and add the green ones to the yellow ones together, learn another model called model 1 until we have everything pseudo-labeled, or there's no more can be pseudo-labeled. The majority voting predictor F star is actually trained on all the source domains. There's no guarantee whether it can be used in the target domain perform good or not. So what we proposed here is trying to select some better prototypes for training a classifier in the target domain by selecting instances closest to the center of the target domain. So the second step, after we have the pseudo-labeled target domain instances, for each of the target domain instances, we want to model the relatedness between this instance and each instance from the source domain. So here we using the softmax to learn the relationship between them. Then we also model the relationship between the target domain instance and also one of the source domain. Each source domain have like this domain embedding we want to learn. We call this domain attention. Finally, we have this jointly training step that we want to predict the target labels based on the relatedness map and the attention weight for each of the source domain. So basically, the output y hat is generated by the source domain labels and the relatedness map, and also the domain attention. The loss function is the cross-entropy error between the predicted label y hat and the pseudo-label y star. What we also introduce here is a rescaling factor lambda that normalizes the target domain similarity score. We have all introduced our method. Now we get into the experiment. First, I want to introduce you the experiment data that we use the multi-domain product review, which is very popular benchmark in unsupervised domain adaptation. And we present here like two speeds. The data speeds have been used in the literature for easy comparison against other prior work. So in the experiment, we look at two directions. How is the performance for each component in the model we proposed? And how is the performance compared to the prior work? In the first part, I will present the effect of the self-training we have been used, the pseudo-labelled instance selection, and the effect of the relatedness map. In the second part, I will present the comparison against the prior work. First, let's look at this table for effect of self-training. We have 4 methods, and the first one is the baseline that is not doing any unsupervised domain adaptation. And for the rest of 4, they actually the numbers here you can see they are very close to each other. The first one is the self-training that I have been described in the proposed method, and the second one is actually put all the source domain together, then do the self-training, not learning the individual predictors. And the third one is trial training that randomly split the available data into 3 parts and then learn a majority voter for that to like continuously labeling the data set. And trial training with disagreement means for the 3 parts of the trial training predictors, and 3 predictors need to have 2 agreements and 1 disagreement so that the label can be learned from this situation. If all 3 are agreed, then it is not counted. On this slide, I showed you the steps, the baseline. The first thing we have done like from the self-training, and then we use the pseudo-labelled target domain instance to learn a classifier from it, and then we do the attention, how the performance improves. And you can see actually the performance improved over steps. So for the pseudo-labelled instance selection, we proposed the target using the target domain similarity. Here I showed you actually 6 methods we have been tested. The prop only that is most of the prior work is using, that is using the highest confidence, the probability, the prediction probability to do the self-training. And we actually also did like experiments on sorting it in the ascending order or the descending order. For similarity, there's no ascending or descending order thing. This is only applied to the probability. So that's why we have this similarity line here, and they look exactly the same. For the combination of the probability and similarity, we have been tested that for same prob or prob same, that means first use the probability and then use the target similarity, or first using the similarity and then use the probability. And we also have looking at whether we take the sum of it or multiply them together. As you can see, the results for only target domain is quite decent after 2000 compared to the others. So we choose target domain similarity only. Here we take one of the negative example from the target tested instances to show you here. There's other example in the paper, you can refer to that later. So this is the example sentences. What we learned is these 5 values. As you can see that so for different colors is from the different sources. You can see the contributions of all the different values, all the different instances from the source domain. Because this is a negative instance, you can actually see there's many negatives, much more negatives here. And we learn also the second part, this domain instance, like attention thing, that you can see E has the most of the contribution. And after we jointly them together, then you can see most of the E ones has been taken out, and the other ones have very, very small contribution to it. And so this I also want to show you the score for like the actual sentence for having very high scores for this sentence. This is a negative sentence, and you can see there's 3 negative ones on the top end with 1 very high score that is called serious problem. This is like given very strong impact of the negative example. Then for the comparison against the prior work, although our proposed method is not like beating all the other methods by all the domains, but we can see like comparative results compared to the prior work, and also our method is much simpler than the other ones. In conclusion, we proposed unsupervised domain adaptation method for multiple source domains, and we combine like self-training with attention module, and also we use similarities to the target domain for selecting pseudo-labelled instance from the source domains. And we are able to provide like evidence from the source domain training instance to show whether we have like good weights from them or not. And we also showed like comparative performance against the prior more complex method on truth based on a benchmark dataset. So that's all for this presentation. Thank you. And if you have any questions, please just drop me an email, or you can ask me now. Thank you.